With YouTube demonetizing independent media, please consider becoming a patron today for just $1 per month. Link below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and this is my review, my what I think of Solo, a Star Wars story. A movie that has been so mired in controversy recently simply because its predecessor, i.e. The Last Jedi 6 months ago, was not a good movie. And as a result of that, there's been a huge online movement against this film, hoping, praying, and in maybe some cases, succeeding in getting people to not go see it, ultimately leading to the film's tanking. So I just went to go see it, and I went in there optimistic. I went in there hoping it was going to be at least entertaining. Some of the reviews I had looked at, some of the comments I had seen from people who had seen it were more or less like maybe middle of the road. It's not good, it's not bad, but it's still not great. And in some respects, they are maybe correct. But ultimately, man, I found myself entertained the whole way through. I did. There will be spoilers here. So if you are on the fence about whether or not to go see this movie, I do recommend it. Not in 3D. And the reason why I say not in 3D is because the film is dark in many cases, right? There's a lot of like darks, not so much dark, but like just kind of grayish scenes. And 3D requires a lot of light. The bulb does. And so if it's not a properly, if it's not a brand new bulb, you might be not getting the fullest experience you can. So I'd recommend seeing it in 2D because 3D is let's face it, crap and everyone's over it. But unfortunately for me, it was pretty much the only available screening for me. Otherwise, everything else was full, and this was even a packed house too. So the movie. Again, we're in spoiler territory now, just so we're aware. The movie was directed by Ron Howard, obviously taking over for Phil Lord and Chris Miller about a year ago now. And apparently he reshot about 70% of the movie. And you can actually see parts of it where you could tell it was them and you could tell it was him. He came at it from a very straightforward perspective, which again, he played it safe. That was, I think, probably the biggest controversy here, or the biggest, well, not controversy, but the biggest complaint I could make would say that he played it safe in terms of how he approached it. That's not bad. Ultimately, that's not bad, but I think playing it safe maybe led him to being a little bit too safe, right? And whereas where Phil Lord and Chris Miller were shooting it, they were doing a lot of handheld stuff. There's a couple scenes in the beginning where that's very present in the shaky cam, and that's ultimately the way I view it. Like they were trying to be a little bit more out there with it, which is one of the things that led to their firing. So it's a marrying of two films. It's a Frankenstein creation of two different productions, but ultimately, like I said, it works. And so Alden Ehrenreich as Solo, I thought did a really good job. Wasn't my favorite character in the movie. Like, obviously, that would be Lando. But he did a really good job, and I think he made it his own while still picking up a lot of the same little mannerisms that Harrison Ford had. Was he the perfect actor for the job? I don't know. A lot of people out there like that other guy who looked a lot like Harrison Ford and was very much trying to be like him. Personally, Ansel Elgort, I think, would have been a good choice as well, but this guy brought it. He brought it, and I think he owned it, and he's gotten high praise from Harrison Ford himself. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. And given the fact they want to make this a trilogy, obviously is going to be, I think a big part of it is having him make it his own thing. Chewbacca, I forget the actor who's the guy who's playing Chewbacca, but it's Chewie. It's totally Chewie. It was great seeing them meet. It was great seeing them interact. It was great seeing that bond form. Great seeing them be, partners in crime, so to speak. Especially when they get to the Millennium Falcon and Chewie sits in the co-pilot seat and they kind of look at each other and give like the nod, like, yeah, boy, it's about to get real up in here. Emilia Clarke as Kira, I really liked. I thought she was a good love interest for Solo. I thought that their upbringing on Corellia and how they were kind of like street urchins, and how they tried to get away together, how they tried to run away, and how it fell apart, guided both characters, and her motivations all the way through were very well hidden, very well concealed, and it worked out well for the big reveal in the end, which I will talk about. There's of course Donald Glover as Lando needed a lot more screen time. Hopefully in the next movie we get a lot more with him. He was great. He really brought it, really brought the Billy D charm, and the whole pansexual thing was kind of on the back of my mind a little bit while watching the movie, but not in the context of like, man, I bet he wants to take Han's member in his mouth or something like that. It was more along the lines of he knows how to be charming and he knows how to get down with it. And when Donald Glover made the comment about like, it doesn't, it's not just boys and girls. No. I'm pretty certain he was having sex with his robot relatively frequently. Like, there's a line in the movie about it where Kira's talking to L337, and they're kind of like, dishing about the boys. And they talk about like, the feelings Lando has for L337 and how she has no feelings for him, but then sometimes she thinks to herself, will this work? And then Kira goes, well, how does it work? And then, or does it work? And she goes, oh, it works. And like, that's it. There's a little line in there basically insinuating that Lando has sex with robots. And he clearly had feelings for L337 and her personality. He put up with her wanting to be like a robot revolutionist. You know what I mean? Like she was all for droid rights, droid freedoms. In fact, that's a kind of a plot point later on in how she approached this prison break scenario by causing a riot, freeing the prisoners. And she's like, I found my life's meaning. And so there's a lot of talk about her, going on about like droid lives matter. And there's a lot of controversy around that. It's there, but it's not really done in a way that I felt was over the top. It was not really done in a way that was done very kind of bullish, but I would assume if in real life, she probably would have a blue hair. Something. She would have a Tumblr blog, or she would be on Twitter all day, every day, complaining about, the patriarchy and things like that. Like, but at the same time, her character I still enjoyed. I still liked what she brought to the table, and I liked that she was just kind of doing her own thing. She was a strong female character, and that's fine with me. It was written well enough to where that worked, and it didn't feel like it was pandering. And so I enjoyed that. At first I thought I wasn't going to, but then I ended up actually enjoying it, so that worked out all right. You've got, let's see, Woody Harrelson as Tobias Beckett. He comes in, and he's kind of like Han's mentor. I like when they first meet him because Han is clearly in the, he's a grunt in the Imperial Army, and they infiltrated the Imperial Army to pull off a heist, and he ends up kind of stumbling across the heist accidentally, ends up freeing Chewie, and then they take off with them. And I liked how that worked out. I thought that was pretty cool. And then Tobias was kind of like, look, he's, kind of teaching Han, like, don't trust anyone. This is the life we lead. These are the jobs. This is what needs to be done. And trusts Han a bit, even though Han's an amateur. And they had this good kind of back and forth, this good rapport, like this good kind of mentor, mentee situation. Or you could call it like a Jedi Master and a Padawan. At this point, Alden became his Padawan. But unfortunately, it took a narrow turn. When on the bank heist, Thandie Newton's character and the other guy, Rio, they both end up getting killed during this heist, and I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't, but I liked the fact that it happened because I felt that it was very much this kind of like there was weight now to this moment. There was sacrifices that were made. This is how these battles play out. We normally don't see people die very often in Star Wars movies, right? But these are characters that pop in. And they're ultimately expendable, but they work for the context that they're there for, and they were well done. I enjoyed both of them immensely. Very similar to Rogue One's kind of cast of characters. I enjoyed them just as much. But then they got the whole thing where they have to go and steal a bunch of unrefined hyperspace fuel, basically, and that's the whole big heist. And they pulled that off, and then Chewbacca. There was a thing I heard from people who had seen the movie that tried making the claim that the entire movie was about Chewbacca's mother, right? I'd heard that from multiple people. I don't know where the thing came from. Again, there's been so much misinformation and bullshit surrounding this entire movie that I just don't listen to half of it anymore. When you've got people out there that are trying to like, tell you that, these numbers mean something from Rotten Tomatoes when they ultimately don't. But no, Chewie's trying to find his family because we know that the Wookiees were taken slaves by the Empire, and we know that they're put in the mines. And so Chewie does come across people that, that part of his tribe. And I don't know if it's his mom. There's another Wookiee there that he has a connection with. It's never explained who she is. But when Han introduces himself, he's like, oh, I'm Chewie's friend. She reaches over and like rubs his head, kind of goes like this a little bit. So makes me think ultimately that that was his mom, or that was someone he was close to. Again, it was a nice moment when they kind of came back together, but then they separated, and it never really brought them up again. That was a bit of a plot hole too. Chewie finds his tribe. Chewie chooses Han over the tribe because they think he frees them or whatever. Like, they're free. We know there's, like, legacy or legend fans know of the life debt, and the life debt's kind of implied here, but, well, not really implied, but we see the moment where it might happen, and it's never really brought up. So that's kind of, again, a thing where it's from the legends, but they didn't bring it into the new canon. So there's that. Yeah, so you got, what is it, Paul Bettany as the bad guy, whose name I cannot remember right now, but he was good. He was really good. It's good seeing him play someone that's not Jarvis or Vision, but I liked him. He was a good bad guy, and I liked his weapons because he had basically the blades that the Praetorian Guards had in The Last Jedi, and he had those on him, right? And so, like, that was kind of cool that he had Jedi, kind of like Jedi powered weaponry that he would use, and that was part of the fight at the end and whatnot. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into this movie. They do the Kessel run in 12 parsecs without ever really fully explaining how it's done. It's this gigantic, like, nebulous cloud sort of thing where there's a lot of debris. There's a pathway through it that you can complete in 20 parsecs, but you got to get, he makes it in 12 parsecs. You can feel that whole moment was relatively tacked on. It was cool. The sequence was really cool, but the 12 parsec thing was kind of like, okay, and then he starts kind of talking up. He's like, oh yeah, I made the Kessel run in 12 parsecs. Like, no one cares about this, man. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? What are you doing? So I will say this though, a couple little things I really enjoyed was that it had the most clever usage of the Imperial March that I've ever heard, and it was actually an ad for joining the Empire, and he looks over at, he sees it, and then you hear like dun 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 dun. You hear it, and that's the jingle for the ad to join the Empire. I thought that was fantastic. I really enjoyed the Sabacc scenes with Lando and Han. Sabacc's a fun game. In the Star Wars canon and whatnot. Glad to see that it was brought back in, and glad to see the two were able to interact in that particular fashion, because I felt like there was a lot of camaraderie there, like they were building a bond, but it just was pretty cool. There's the dice from Last Jedi played a big part of this, like a big part, like kind of, I would say, overindulgent, like an overindulgent part. It was very much referenced multiple times, and then that was meant to tie into the emotional weight from The Last Jedi as well as The Force Awakens. So you know why it was there, but I called it 6 months ago when I saw The Last Jedi. I'm like, oh, those dice, that's going to be a big plot point in Solo, and it turns out that it was. Maybe not a gigantic plot point, but definitely a plot point nonetheless. Okay, so let's see here. The big thing, the big thing is the cameo. I did not see this coming. So when Kira puts the ring from Dryden and it calls his boss, I thought his boss was a Hutt or Vader, is what I thought. Right, that the Crimson Dawn, that the criminal organization was secretly working for the Empire. And you see that it's a hologram, and you see a person in a cloak, and you're like, huh, I wonder who that is. And then you look down and you see that they have metal legs. Now, when I saw the metal legs, I was like, oh shit, no way. Audibly in the theater, like mouth up, like, oh my God, no way. And then it cuts to a front shot, and you see just the slight outlines of tattoos. And I'm like, no way, no fucking way, no way. And then he pulls back the door. I'm like, yes. And I mean, I audibly made noise in the theater. And the thing is, like, no one else there made noise at this. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. No one there made noise. It's fucking Darth Maul. But then again, I've been waiting 19 years, man, to see him back on the screen. Now, granted, Star Wars Rebels, that was in there, but man, that was awesome. I freaking loved it. If that would have been like one of those best reaction videos, right? Like, we're going to see a lot of that when kids get old enough to watch this. We're going to see a lot of reactions like, oh, my 5-year-old daughter reacts to Darth Maul in freaking Solo. It's going to be, that whole thing. But it was great. And it was Sam Witwer who did the voice of Maul, like who did the voice of Maul on Star Wars Rebels too. So that was a great little crossover, a great little connection, right? A little Easter egg that was showing, like that they got it. And then also Han shot first, which I thought was great. When he kills Tobias Beckett, he shoots first, and I thought that was an awesome little throwback because the whole Greedo thing, and it kind of gives a little credence to why he did it. That's always been a point of contention with Star Wars fans from A New Hope, is like Han killed him kind of in cold blood. But Han realizes he can recognize when his life's in danger. He knows when he's going to be shot at. And so that's why he shot first, and he shot first here too. So I like that they kind of connected that together. And then I love the music. The soundtrack was fantastic. The CG was good, was pretty good. Again, one of the biggest problems happened to be just the fact that it was very gray and very bleak in a couple of the scenes. So it's like, you know, it felt like a lot of it was kind of shadowed, which I know is meant to kind of be like the fog of war situation. But ultimately, I think it just maybe kind of took away from the experience. But that being said, it's also had a lot to do with the fact that I was seeing this in 3D, and the lighting is really important here. What I didn't quite like about the movie was the first act was a bit clunky, trying to get the narrative going. Getting used to Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo at first took a little bit of time. But when he got there, he was there. The movie was probably maybe a little bit too long. Some stuff maybe could have been cut, or some stuff could have been added in. I mean, really, there's a lot there that they have to play with. And ultimately, I think probably what the biggest con is that a lot of people out there are going to avoid seeing this movie right up the bat or at all because they're not happy with The Last Jedi, and they feel like the two are connected. And the two, in ways, are obviously the dice are a big thing, but at the same time, they're entirely separate entities. And I actually sat next to a guy who's by himself, and during the end credits, him and I started talking, and I'm like, oh, what'd you think? He's like, oh, I really liked it. And I'm like, well, what do you think of The Last Jedi? And he's like, you know. And I'm like, we started talking about that a little bit, about the narrative issues with that movie and how this movie was very straightforward. And I think the straightforward aspect of it is very refreshing. There's no Canto Bite scene here. They go and they gamble, but it's very straightforward. It's handled in a way that played it safe, but played it safe because I feel they had to. And this is what's going to, I think, bring people back into the Star Wars fold. I think people are going to see this and they're going to go, okay, this is great. This is awesome. And this is more Star Warsy. This is like, I think Mr. Repsion had said, to him, it felt like watching Indiana Jones. And I got a lot of that too. It felt a bit like that. Like it was a throwback to that movie. But then again, Lawrence Kasdan wrote Raiders, and he wrote Empire, and he wrote this. So there's a lot of themes that pull back in. And that was another thing I really enjoyed about it. So look, is it the best movie in the world? No, it's not. Is it the best Star Wars movie ever? No, it's not. Is it a serviceable entry into the franchise? Yes. Does this make up for The Last Jedi? Almost, you know, like it's been 6 months of a bad taste in your mouth, but this now has a better taste. Tastes like Solo. It's pretty good. I recommend it. And I'm curious to know what you guys have to think about this. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.